Thanks for tuning in to Healthy Planet One, where we discuss healthy living from experts in each of their fields. This is your host, Patricia Starr.
And your co-host, Kimberly Knock.
Welcome, everyone. Today's guest on Healthy Planet One is Dr. Marny Turvill, and we're so excited to have her. So we'll be talking about what to heal, change your mind, and this is part 2. So as a reintroduction, we'll just refresh your mind. Dr. Marny Turvill has been a medical doctor for over 30 years, owning her own functional medicine practices called Outside the Pill Box since 2013. And after 16 years as a conventional pediatrician, Dr. Marny left medicine for 7 years due to her own sudden and devastating health issues, finding no help for improving her health within the conventional medical model. Dr. Marny restored her health with functional medicine. So welcome back, Dr. Marny.
Thank you.
And I know there was so much to say on the first part, so we wanted to give you the full aspect of doing part 2. So give us a brief recap of what we talked about before, and then lead us into the second part of your talk.
Okay. So, we got off on a tangent that actually became an interview in and of itself, right?
Right.
So, we talked about what is conventional medicine and what is functional medicine, and what's the difference between them. And conventional medicine is the prevailing healthcare system in the United States. It's what most people grew up with, and it's the only medical system that most people here use and know. But there's a large swath of holistic healthcare modalities, including a fairly recent surge in functional medicine. And so we talked about the difference between those two. The conventional medicine is getting a diagnosis and using pharmaceutical medications or surgery to manage that diagnosis. And it's phenomenal for acute illness, short-term illness, or emergencies, injuries, traumas, etc. It's life-saving. You want to use conventional medicine in those cases. Unfortunately, conventional medicine does not have the tools to restore health when you've gotten to the point of having a chronic illness. And that's something that most doctors don't realize.
Right, and the thing that was riveting to me in our last talk was that the training that you got as one who entered the medical field wanting to help was strictly about surgery and medications, and that was it, and everything else was a no, right? I remember you saying.
Well, and let's drive that home a little further, because we all thought, myself and all my medical school colleagues, we all thought we were getting how to help people be healthy. So it's not just that we got there and found out, oh, this isn't what we thought it was.
Right.
You don't find that out. Doctors don't find that out until they're way down the path, if ever. I found it out because the bottom fell out of my health literally overnight when I was pregnant with my second child. And that's how I got into functional medicine, which is about restoring health. It's not about managing symptoms. It's about finding out what is at the root of your health problem, because 10 people who have the same diagnosis could have very different root causes of that diagnosis. Now, they're going to be similar. There's always going to be similarities, but they could have very different things that they need to focus on to get well. There's no one-size-fits-all. So it's really important to understand the differences and know you have a choice. And the health challenge I had, which we talked about next, was something called multiple chemical sensitivities, which a lot of people have never heard of, although it affects probably 16, maybe now 20 million people. It was 16 back, 10 years ago or so, in the United States alone. Excuse me. And it's a condition that is, it's very isolating and very devastating, because you get to the point where you can't tolerate any exposure to chemicals. And I'm talking about to auto exhaust, to perfumes to personal care products to paint to cleaning products, anything, your body just kind of melts down around them. And I was doing all sorts of things to give my body what it needed to heal, but for 10 years I couldn't find any answers as to what was going on. And this illness seemed like such a mystery because, as a doctor, I knew the physiology of the body, but nothing explained what was happening, because I knew that chemicals, I knew that chemicals aren't good for us. I learned a whole lot more about how really, really bad they are for us when I got sick. But chemicals can't cause an immediate themselves. The chemicals themselves cannot cause an immediate kind of meltdown of the body where you just kind of decompensate. You immediately feel tired. You feel on edge. You want to run and get out of the room. You have pain. You have nausea. You have metallic taste in your mouth, all sorts of things. Chemicals can't do that. They can't do it in an instant, which is how the symptoms show up, but they can't do it in a minute. They can't do it in 5 minutes. They take time to have an effect.
So they kind of build up in the system?
Sense. Well, they do build up in the system, always, because we can't detoxify as fast as we're exposed to what we're exposed to in the world since the 1980s. But it took me 10 years to find that the driving force behind the chemical sensitivities is PTSD. It's post-traumatic stress disorder, where chemicals are the trigger. We're used to post-traumatic stress in military people or in someone who's been in a bad car accident or something like that. But this is it where chemicals are triggering, and that made perfect sense. And that took me into this whole realm of changing your mind. So I call my talks often, Want to Heal, Change Your Mind. Mm-hmm. And it's because we have to change our mind in so many ways. Consciously, we have to make decisions about living differently. Mm-hmm. But what we really need, but in order to carry out those decisions, it's easy to make a decision. I'm going to go on a diet starting tomorrow. Boom. I'm going to start exercising tomorrow. Boom. How easy is it to actually carry through?
Right.
It's not easy at all.
Yeah.
Very simple steps to take. We all know exactly what they are, which is part of people's biggest frustration. I know what I need to do. Why can't I do it?
Yeah. So what's the secret to that, Marny?
Well, the secret to that is learning how to control your subconscious mind, right? Our conscious mind makes decisions. I'm going to start the diet. I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to go to sleep on time. But our subconscious mind says, no, you're not. That's not safe. And our subconscious mind has one job and one job only, which is to keep us safe and keep us, it's worse than that. Better than that, I don't know which way it goes. Worse or better. Its job is to keep us alive. It is survival, right? Is the job of the subconscious mind.
And the mind only knows what it knows from the past. So that's why it can be negative, because if we have bad habits and do things that we think are right, but we're consuming all these chemicals without even knowing it. And I know Kimberly comes up with that quite a lot, when she teaches about food. Mm-hmm. Right.
So we develop, here's the crazy thing. There's so many reasons behind this. It's, pardon the pun, it's mind-boggling. And this is why it's so hard for people to get healthy, even when they know what to do. I mean, first of all, you have to get past the conventional healthcare system, which wants to keep you sick because that's profitable for them. That's not the doctor's motivation, but that's the motivation of the system. You got to get past that, and then you got to deal with your own mind, which is, it's stealth. It's like a ninja stealth warrior, our mind, because it doesn't want us to know what we're doing, because then we might get in its way and inhibit its ability to protect our survival. So, isn't that crazy?
Yes, it is.
So let's talk about some of the things. So here's why getting healthy may not be safe in terms of your mind's view of the world. And you have to remember that your mind got its view of the world between the time you were actually in utero before you were born and the time you were 7 years old. Your mind got most of its laws, if you will, of what's safe and what's not safe, at a time when you were not capable of conscious logical thought, right? So you act like a sponge and you take in all the beliefs, all the fears of the world around you, particularly your parents. So, whatever gets said repeatedly becomes law. If you got yelled at for making mistakes, it's not safe to make a mistake. Right. If you couldn't get love unless you seemed perfect, then you have to be perfect to be lovable. And we're afraid of, that's another reason of where we become afraid of making mistakes, or we become afraid of people seeing our flaws. Things like this. And you have to remember back to our caveman days, humans are tribal beings. If you go back to caveman days, you couldn't survive on your own. You needed a tribe to protect you. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that makes it the most unsafe for us to do the things we know we need to do to get healthy is that if we make those changes, if we change how we eat, if we decide to not go out drinking as much, we will be different from our tribe, different from our family, different from our friends. And we risk being kicked out of the tribe.
Oh my God, we're going through that right now, aren't we?
I see this all the time, though, with in my health coaching, for sure. It's pushback, right. And this is the root cause. And this is great that you're bringing this up because I've discussed this with someone.
It's a huge issue, and so we have to, and we're taught, So that's going on at the deepest level in the mind, is protecting you from not losing your support group, whether it's friends or family or coworkers or whatever. We got to stay acceptable to that group. And if we decide to do something different, which unfortunately eating healthy and taking time to exercise or meditate and drinking less and sleeping a reasonable amount are all unfortunately different from the norm of most people's social groups now, we start to become, you're no fun, you're too good for us, you're too different. All that stuff happens.
Right.
Yeah.
And even deeper than that, Marny, there's if there's that rejection from society, you're going to be alone and you're going to die. It really gets down to basic stuff like that.
Well, exactly. That's my whole point. That's my whole point, is if we're rejected by our friends, then we are going to be alone and die. That's exactly what your brain perceives. Your brain isn't capable of taking a step and saying, you know what? If they only like me because of the way I eat and how much I drink, are they good friends?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Your brain isn't capable of saying, you know what, they like me for who I am. They're going to accept me if I, eat differently, or if I don't have a second or a third drink. They'll still love me because they love me. Our brain doesn't go there. It can't, right. Like our conscious mind can, but the subconscious mind is a mega ultra supercomputer faster than the speed of light, and the conscious mind is like an old jalopy. So the subconscious mind has made our decisions long before the conscious mind even realizes there was a decision to be made.
Well, that's really an important distinction that you're making, because you're talking about conscious decisions, like which type of doctor do I go to? Somebody comes down with X, and the first thing out of your mouth is, did you go to the doctor, and ask the doctor, well, who are you going to go to? But then there's the distinction you're making is the subconscious mind and where that's going. So talk a little bit more about that conscious versus the rewiring of the subconscious.
Yes. So conscious comes from keeping us safe. And so we have to just start to learn to look at. And so that safety thing is behind our fight or flight response, which is when we get angry or scared because something happened. It happens to all of us multiple times a day, hopefully in small fight or flights, not big ones, but that's what PTSD is ongoing huge fight or flight reactions,
Mm-hmm.
where the stress cascade is just enormous